But that home run he hit on Sunday was special. Like, that is the kind of stuff that the Royals drafted him to do. He hits a home run against Trey Mago, the Chicago White Sox, on Sunday. A lefty. He goes lefty-lefty. And you guys have all seen the clip. But 115 off the bat, 435 feet onto the berm in dead center field. It is legitimate 80 power. Probably 70 present, 80 future. Something like that. With a really solid hit tool as well. Like, it's the guy's bat to ball skills are special.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
One Royal Way back at it here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield. Thank you so much for tuning in on audio and video wherever you are consuming this. Thank you very much. Spring training games are in full swing. Baseball is back. We got a lot to talk about this week. Even though we only got a handful of games, we got some storylines and things to go through. We're going to do a kind of stock up, stock down report of some of the guys that are fighting for spots, kind of on the either or on the fringes of possibly either making the roster or making themselves known for the 2025 season, that they can make an impact. Some of the young guys, some of the prospects that have stood out so far, and then we'll do our opening day roster 2.0. Second go round with a few additions and some changes in there that we'll definitely go through. Before we do that, got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Emprise Bank, our partners in possible here at KC Sports Network and on One Royal Way. Can't thank them enough for their support of this show and everything we do here at KCSN. Off the top here, there's been a fair amount of injury news over the last couple of weeks, or last week or so, since we last recorded. On the day we recorded, or when the last episode came out last week, it was announced Kyle Wright has a mild hamstring strain that happened in one of his more recent bullpens. Set him back about a week. He was playing catch the next day, so that's a good sign that it was not as significant as it could be. But he is still not thrown in games, and he hasn't thrown in games for quite a long time, so setting him back, it puts his roster spot in flux a little bit. I had him initially on the roster for opening day, but that might change a little bit. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like now with Kyle Wright having that hamstring injury, and who knows if that flares back up when he tries to ramp back up from that injury. We knew about Alec Marsh and his right shoulder soreness. He threw his first bullpen on the 24th. Seems like he came out of that pretty good. And then on the 27th, the day that this episode comes out, he'll do another bullpen, and that will indicate when he can get into games. He's still a little bit behind, and he has options. So this might mean that he ends up going to AAA initially, but still some stuff to go off of there. But good to see that he's throwing and things seem to be heading in the right direction. This one was recent. I believe this one was yesterday, which would have been Tuesday. Dairon Blanco has right Achilles tenderness. That for a speedy guy, that is not ideal. It sounds like he's just going to get treatment for a couple of days before he gets back out on the field. They don't seem incredibly concerned about it. But anything when you're dealing with a possible Achilles injury or something that is bothering the Achilles, it's a pretty decent red flag. I'm not, that is pretty concerning to me. And I had Dairon Blanco on the opening day roster in that same sort of role that he had last season for this team. That's in a little bit of doubt right now because who knows if that, this tenderness can lead to more inflammation or a possible tear, which, it's obviously worst case scenario, but it's the kind of stuff you have to play into right now because of the nature of that injury and the nature of his role on this team. The biggest injury, I think, for the organization, possibly, it just sucks to see because I have pretty high expectations for this guy. Blake Mitchell, he has a broken right hamate bone, so that's in his throwing hand, and that's his bottom hand for hitting. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, so no baseball activity at all during that time, and then he's going to ramp back up and he'll end up in Quad Cities. At that time, I would probably put him around, I'd say early May would be the earliest that he ends up there. And with this injury, with it being a hand and your hands being super important in baseball, especially as a catcher, this kind of puts an asterisk on his season a little bit. We've seen guys come back mid-season from a hamate bone injury, but it hampers you quite a bit swinging the bat. It's a comfort thing, like being able to kind of let it rip and really let your hands fly. And coming off a broken bone in your hand, sometimes guys don't take to it. It can zap some power. And for Blake Mitchell, that's his calling card as a hitter. He's not going to hit for a bunch of average. He's going to strike out a lot. So he has to hit for power. He has to hit home runs. He has to hit doubles. And that's going to be taken away from him a little bit this season, based on other guys that have had this injury. So we'll see what happens with him. I was skeptical of him coming into the 2024 season. He exceeded every expectation that I could have had for what he was for the Columbia Fireflies. And I thought this year he could really break out and continue that progression and justify the pick that the Royals made in the first round a couple of years ago. But we're not going to see that right now, at least for the next month and a half. So it's something to keep an eye on. If you see his numbers down in Quad Cities, I'm kind of writing it off because it's to be expected to some degree. So we'll see, but I'm not going to worry. I hope that he comes back, but I'm not going to worry too much about what he does this season. I just want him to get healthy. And when he's back to 100%, then we can reassess where he is as a prospect. Ross Stripling signed a minor league deal with the Royals and with a non-roster invite to spring training. This is a depth move more than anything to me. Feels like he probably, if they're giving him a non-roster invite, that means they're going to give him obviously a chance to make the team out of spring training. I don't think that's going to happen. This feels like a depth move, and then he probably refuses a minor league assignment, and then he's a free agent again. But this is just an opportunity to get on a mound and showcase himself, either to the Royals or to another organization. I'm not going to read too much into this. The Kyle Wright injury, it kind of makes sense to get just another body in camp with some of these guys, James MacArthur as well, coming off of elbow surgery. So there's some guys that are a little bit behind. Stripling's healthy, been throwing all winter. So it's just another guy to get out there and, provide a body in camp, but I don't think it's going to end up being much more than that. I don't think we have to worry about Ross Stripling making the opening day roster and logging innings for the Royals, barring some sort of collapse or major injury attrition that we're not expecting. I'm not going to read too much into it beyond that. I'm going to throw it a break a little early here, and then after we come back, we'll do our stock up, stock down on a few guys, do 2 hitters and 2 pitchers each, and then we'll talk. Obviously, we got to talk about Jac Caglianone, got to talk about Carter Jensen, and Luinder Avila. I want to profile him because it's super interesting. And then we'll do our opening day roster 2.0 right after this.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
If you're watching this on YouTube right now and you're not subscribed, go hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when our episodes go up, and be sure to go subscribe on the audio side as well, and hit that, and you can set notifications for Spotify and Apple Podcasts to come right to your phone whenever our shows go live. We really appreciate it, and you guys have been doing that. We gained subscribers last week after the episode went up, so you guys continue to do that, and we appreciate that support. This is going to be a really fun year. So let's do a kind of radio-ish segment, stock up, stock down on a couple of guys. We'll start with the positive ones. But Nick Lofton, I think, has solidified himself as a guy not just competing for a spot, but can outright win it. I think he's hitting .714 so far in spring here. He's 5 for 7 with 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 4 walks to 1 strikeout. Now, let me clarify here before I go any further. I am talking in small sample sizes. This is a handful of at-bats and maybe a couple innings. So this is not indicative of what the next few weeks is going to be like. This is just what we have to go off of now. So for anyone talks to me about it's only a couple of at-bats, I understand that. I have to talk about the team, and this is the only way to do it because we actually have evidence of games, even if it's not a ton. I get it. I promise. But Nick Lofton, I've always liked the profile, and I think it's a guy that's very intriguing as a utility type, contact first guy. The problem is last season, he didn't hit the ball very hard, very often. He was hitting the ball on the ground a lot. And yes, he'd take walks and strike out a lot, but the batted ball stuff was just not indicative of a guy that was going to make it in the big leagues for very long. He has 2 doubles so far. So the extra base hits and the line drives that he's been hitting, that is a good sign. A guy that's starting to kind of fix things or just figure things out. And his positional versatility, second, third, corner outfield, they played him first a little bit last year. He can kind of move all over the place. It's a valuable piece for this team as a right-handed hitter that can kind of, a couple times a week, especially against lefties, really get the job done. So, and he's a name to watch, and you'll see where I have him. I had him competing for a spot in 1.0. You'll see where I have him in 2.0 here in a little bit, but certainly a good sign that Nick Lofton is starting to get it done. Another guy that's competing for a roster spot as a non-roster invite was Kevin Biggio. He had a home run the other day, pull side homer. I think the exit velocity on it was around 104.5. That was his max EV from last season between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. So hitting the ball hard, pull side against right-handed pitching, that's what you hope for from him. And that he can fill that left-handed hitting utility guy role, kind of the Adam Frazier role, but I think he can do it at a much more functional level, playing multiple positions at a higher level and hitting the ball with more regularity against right-handed pitching better than Adam Frazier did for the 2024 Royals. Biggio has played so far. They moved him to first, second, and third. And I would not be shocked if later this week or next he's playing corner outfield as well, just to get him out there and see what happens. It's a good sign that he's doing this because they need depth and they need left-handers that can come off the bench and get the job done. And I think he can do that. And he was the name that immediately I saw it was a minor league deal and it was a non-roster invite. I pretty much thought, yeah, he's going to make the opening day roster. Like, that's the way this is going to end up happening. I think we're heading in that direction right now. A couple pitchers. Chris Bubic made his first start of the season, his first start since going down with Tommy John surgery in 2023. Came out of the bullpen exclusively last year, as you guys know. And if you listen to this show for long enough, you know that I have been a big proponent of him staying in the bullpen and that needing to be where Chris Bubic needs to be. Not that I don't think he can start, because I certainly believe that he's fully capable of doing that. The difference to me is his velocity is not good enough, and his fastball shape usually has not been good enough to sustain 2 to 3 times through the order. He's got some other pitches, and some of his off-speed stuff is solid, but I don't know if it's good enough to make it, again, 2-3 times the order, which is what you expect out of your starting pitcher. Even if your fifth starter, you need him to go at least twice, save the bullpen a little bit. But to his credit, his velocity was up for a fair amount from what it was last season. The averaged 93.7. It topped out at 95, which I think he only did a couple of times last season, even during the playoffs. He's throwing his slider a couple of different variants. He talked about throwing a shorter one that kind of more like a cutter or slutter, if you will, and then a more sweeping slider to give a couple of different looks to go with the sinker and change it. He's almost ditched. He threw a curveball when he first came up. I think he's ditched that entirely. And because he's throwing the ball harder, he's spinning the ball a little bit better with that kind of the correlation of spin and velo. His fastball is up almost a full mile an hour. Now, this is where small samples come into play a little bit, where was he just amped up and first start in almost 2 years and let it eat a little bit more than he normally would during the season? Possibly, because he only knew he was throwing 2 innings. But if he's able to maintain 92, 93, hit at a 4 or a 5 with, some regularity, it changes the math on what Chris Bubic can be. because I don't think he's going to be able to sustain a full season as a starter and be effective and productive throwing 90 to 92, and maybe he hits 94 like once. But if he's able to be 92, 93 and pop a 4 or 5 multiple times and be in that range and it just not be top and then he never gets back there, it makes Chris Bubic a much more valuable pitcher. And I think he should get every opportunity to start at this point. We'll see, even if I'm still kind of skeptical of what it could look like over the course of a full season with Kyle Wright being injured, Alec Marsh on the mend. Daniel Lynch seems like he's solidified in the bullpen. He looked really good the other day. I'm not mentioning him specifically in this episode, but I think he's been really good in spring and seems like he has embraced and taken on that lefty long relief bullpen role, and it's made his stuff tick up a little bit. He's been good. But Chris Bubic is going to get that opportunity, and I'm excited to see what happens with it. Another guy that's shown a lot in spring training so far, and kind of caught the eye of everybody, has been Noah Cameron. And I know that that's a name that has been floated around quite a bit. A guy that I like and I've liked for quite a while, dating back to when he was in the low minor leagues. But now it seems like this is gone from a good story, a guy that maybe in a pinch could fill into a guy that can actually have a legitimate impact on the big league roster, either relief or out of the bullpen. And another guy that's seen his velocity tick up. He averaged around 92 last year between Double A and Triple A. He's been averaging around 94 so far. And he went up to, I believe, the fastest was 95.7 today, so almost 96. If you want to round up to it. That is fascinating. 95. Fastest was actually 95.9, according to Baseball Savant, so 96. Average 95. And the lowest was 93.6. So he's throwing the ball much harder. Again, similar to Bubic, is this just him being amped up? Or is this something he's kind of found in the offseason as a guy that needs to maybe throw a little bit harder from the left side to make it work a little bit? Fastball cutter. The only concern I have right now is I look at the data in his outing today. He gave up a home run to Nick Martini, who got Michael Walker earlier in the game too. So just one of those games. But Noah Cameron threw his fastball 11 times. They swung at 8 of them and made contact with every pitch. Now that doesn't mean that it went into play, but that means that there was contact made, fair or foul, on all 8 swings that Noah Cameron threw his four-seam fastball. Whether they had just had a beat on it or he was tipping it, whatever the case, that has to get better. And he has to find a way to get swinging this in the strike zone with the four-seamer for it to be truly effective at the big league level. The cutter seems like that is a equalizer for him. The max spin on it was 2,700 RPMs, almost 2,500 average, which is really, really good for a guy that's going cutter over a true slider. 4 whiffs on 7 swings with that. That's a big time number. That's the kind of stuff you like saying. His changeup is obviously devastating, and he throws a solid curveball too. So the pitchability, the combination of pitchability and stuff, I think is going to be enough to work in the big leagues, but I want to see him continue to build on his fastball. If he's going to throw it at this velocity, getting some swing and miss and finding ways to work it into his arsenal to get those swings and misses is going to be the key difference for him. If he's able to figure that out, whether it's now or he goes to Omaha and starts getting that, he's going to pitch in the big leagues this season. And he's going to be a part of this rotation, possibly. Or if nothing else, he's going to go to the bullpen. If he's 96 out of the bullpen, you feel pretty good about that role. But a name to continue to watch, and has moved from, hey, he might to he will pitch in the big leagues this season. Moving to the other side, stock down. And these are guys that I'm not writing off. I'm not doing anything like that. This is just where we're at right now. They have not helped their case, is more what it's about. Again, 2 hitters, 2 pitchers. I'll start with the pitchers this time. Carlos Hernandez, he had a much better outing. I believe it was yesterday. Got a strikeout. It was a quick, efficient outing. So, good bounce back. But his first outing on Saturday was brutal. He walked 2, struck out 1, gave up 4 runs, gave up a home run, threw 17 fastballs, averaging around 96, and he only got one swing and miss on those fastballs. When you throw the ball that hard, you need to find a way to get swing and miss. This is the same conversation I have with Noah Cameron. This is an established big leaguer from the right side that we've seen get up into triple digits, throws the ball really hard, but has not been, the fastball doesn't play the same. It's not an effective upper 90s fastball. And for a guy that's pretty much been inconsistent for his entire career, and a guy that's out of options too, as I mentioned last week. This is a guy that needed to come into spring and make a name for himself and make an impact and show like, yes, I got this figured out. I can be a part of this bullpen. One outing is not going to be so damning that he doesn't make the opening day roster, but it certainly doesn't help. Now, it was good to see him bounce back. I want to see him continue to pitch that way before I really change my opinion. I had him on the bubble of making the roster. I still do not have him there making the roster, but I'm hoping that, hey, first outing jitters, fastball is kind of down. He wasn't letting it eat the same way we've seen him do it in the past, throwing 98, 99, 100. As the velocity comes up, the swings and miss and some of the a more effective Carlos Hernandez comes with it, I'll obviously change my opinion and see where he fits in. But it was not a good. It was a very inauspicious start to his spring training and to trying to make this team, because he has to make the team or he's DFA'd and he's gone because he's out of options. Another guy that I don't think has helped himself, but I don't think it's so bad that he's not going to make the opening day roster is Joey Wiemer. He struck out, I think, 3 times. He struck out another time today. Finally got a hit. He's 1 for 10. It hasn't looked great. Some of the at-bats have not been pretty. I was hoping that maybe he could play well enough. I'm hoping that I shouldn't talk too much in past tense when there's only a handful of games. Let me rephrase. I am hoping that he eventually gets to a point where he plays well enough that he can almost platoon with Kyle Isbell in center field, because Wiemer's a good defender and he's fast. And I think he could play center field at Kauffman Stadium pretty effectively. And you don't have to have Kyle Isbell in there against lefties. It would make a huge difference to this team. Early returns have not been great, but it's a small sample, so we'll see. But just one to watch out for. And at worst, then with Dairon Blanco being out, Wiemer kind of fills that role, and he can be the pinch hit late in games guy. I don't think he's necessarily the base stealing threat that Dairon is, but he's fast, and maybe he can use his speed more effectively in that type of role. Be a defensive replacement once a week against lefties, play. I'm hoping it could be almost more straight platoon as the season progresses. That's my hope, because I think it maximizes Kyle Isbell as well, who's actually had a pretty decent start to spring. I said I was going to do both pitchers, and I was just looking at my document. It's fine. Drew Waters. Only reason I have Drew Waters on stock down is I know people are still kind of holding out hope that he might be able to put it all together. But right now he's getting at bats in spring training with the AA guys. In the A games and in the B games, he's starting. It's not like he's been bad. I think he's been fine, I think. But it has not been a good start for Drew Waters. And the fact that he is at this point just getting at bats with the minor league guys is not a good sign that he's anything more than or depth at this point. I could see him, getting maybe traded for something and just go somewhere, change of scenery. Maybe it works out there. This is not a referendum on the trade that was made to get him. They thought maybe they could get their everyday center fielder, in a guy like this, and it just didn't work out. It's fine. We passed that point, but that's just where we're at with Drew Waters. Chandler Champlain had a rough outing. I was kind of grasping at straws, trying to find one more guy. But he didn't have a great outing. I think he gave up a handful of runs. I'm getting this pulled up right now. I had it ready, and then I refreshed the page on accident, so bear with me for just a moment. I filtered it the wrong way. Champlain gave up 3 earned in an inning in the third. Hit 2 guys and struck out 2, walked 1. This wasn't great. Again, a guy to watch out for maybe his or depth, but he really stalled out when he got to AAA, so we'll see where he ends up and how he continues to progress, because I think he'll be in camp for quite a while. Same with Noah Cameron, but we'll see. How he continues to rest. But it's just one game, but it was not great for a guy that we thought, maybe this is the year that he breaks through and can help the big league roster. But then Noah Cameron's kind of taking that spot, and another guy possibly that I'll get to here in a minute. But I was kind of grasping straws trying to get 4, and I went with Champlain. Not an indictment on him. Just rough outing. It's fine. Shit happens. It's it's early in spring training. Guys are all trying to get stuff figured out. So we'll see. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the young guys that have made an impact so far in spring training and made their presence known. Got to talk about Jac Caglianone. He gets a spot as a non-roster invite. He's getting into some of these games now. Grain of salt. He has not gotten a start in a spring training game. He is playing mostly with the guys that would be at his level, AA, AAA guys, late in some of these games. So you got to kind of look at it through that lens. It's not like he's doing it against big time arms. But that home run he hit on Sunday was special. Like, that is the kind of stuff that the Royals drafted him to do. He hits a home run against Trey Mago, the Chicago White Sox, on Sunday. A lefty, goes lefty, and you guys have all seen the clip, but 115 off the bat, 435 feet onto the berm in dead center field. It is legitimate 80 power. Probably 70 present, 80 future, something like that. With a really solid hit tool as well. Like, it's the guy's bat to ball skills are special. And then he hit another ball the other day, I think it was on Tuesday, as he comes into the game late and fires a rifle 110, up the middle for a base hit to drive in another run, just exclusively hitting the ball hard. And then he gets another hit the other way, kind of a flare, but finds the green grass and gets a hit, living clean. My concern with Jac Caglianone is the approach is just bad, just flatly. This is what he has to work on. This is why I know that people are clamoring for him to be there, the guy in the lineup, that hit behind Bobby Witt Jr. Like, that's great, but the guy swings so much, and he doesn't need to. And I hope that he learns that in Northwest Arkansas, where he should go. As far as I know, like, as far as I'm concerned, throw the dude in AA and sink or swim. Then I think he's going to be really good. I really do. Even if he doesn't hit for a high average, he's going to hit a ton of home runs. He's going to make a massive impact in that lineup. If he can learn to walk and learn to take pitches, he's going to be a monster. He's got as much power as anybody in the big leagues. His power is up there with Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. It really is. But it's just a matter of putting it all together. And I think he's going to. It's just a flash of what he could be, getting on that ball and hitting it 115 miles an hour. It's special. The talent is special, and I don't deny that whatsoever. I just want to see the guy progress and mature as a hitter before I'm ready to say, get that guy to Kansas City. If he starts to do that and take some notes from Carter Jensen on working at bats and hammering a mistake, is going to be really fun. Now, speaking of Carter Jensen, and I think Josh probably has this up at max volume in his car listening to this on his way to work, I'd imagine. He's been really impressive too. Haven't really been able to watch any of these games for obvious reasons. None of them have been televised, so I don't know. He got a start, which I thought was awesome, but haven't got to see how he has looked behind the plate yet. But at the plate, as a hitter, he continues to impress, and he is so mature at the plate, working counts, not chasing a ton, hitting the ball hard almost exclusively, and continues to show that he could be a future part of this lineup. Maybe not this year, but 2026, we're going to be talking about when is Carter Jensen going to be in the lineup with Bobby and Vinny and all these guys. And in that same game that Jac Caglianone hit the home run, so did Carter Jensen. And he did it against James Karinchak, a guy that had been with Cleveland for a number of years. And then I think he was either hurt or in AAA for most of last year, trying to work his way back with the White Sox. And James Karinchak throws high octane stuff. It is upper 90s with a just absolute hammer of a curveball. Now, I don't think he's been the same pitcher post sticky stuff ban, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless, dude throws cheddar. And Carter Jensen, like a 7-year vet, just spitting on breaking balls, high fastballs, works a count, and then he gets a fastball in and absolutely hammers it. And crushing it right, no doubt about it. That is, to me, more impressive than what Cags did. Because he did it against guys that got pro time. He did it in a way that was not, I just ambushed an 0-0 fastball and hey, power one out. He worked the count. He spit on pitches that weren't there, not gonna worry about swinging at that out of the strike zone. And then if he makes a mistake in the zone 3-2, I'm gonna hammer it. And that's exactly what he did. It's the kind of stuff that he's done throughout his minor league career. Where guys are kind of where a lot of those guys in Columbia and in Quad Cities were kind of terrified to pitch to him because they knew if he made a mistake, he was going to park it pole side to right field. And that's exactly what happened there. He was pretty solid. Struck out a little more than normal in Northwest Arkansas, but that jump from high to double A is the biggest jump. And when he kind of struggled a little bit in Quad Cities in 2023, went right back there in 24 and lit the world on fire. I would not be shocked if he adjusts to the league and adjusts to the level, and getting an extended look in big league spring training, being around Salvador Perez and Vinny Pasquantino and all these guys. I'm sure that's going to rub off and have an impact on him. And I feel really confident and excited for what Carter Jensen could be. And man, there's a shot that we're going to see Caglianone and Carter Jensen hitting back-to-back in a lineup fairly often in Springdale. Might make a road trip down Northwest Arkansas at some point during summer. See that, because that could be absolutely special what those two could do in the Texas League. My goodness. Another guy that I knew he was on the 40-man roster, and I knew he was going to be in big league spring training. I didn't really think about him a lot. It was Luinder Avila. And he's a guy that I like, and a guy that I think is going to be a solid big league pitcher, but I just didn't think this was going to be a guy that jumps off the page too much while he's, working here. And he's in big league camp, and he's done pretty well. Through an outing on Monday that I need to pull up the numbers because it was pretty nutty, some of the stuff that he pulled out. I knew he was a solid pitcher in the minor leagues and a guy that, kind of keep an eye on, sort of. His average fastball was 97. He was hitting 90. He hit 99, both with his sinker and his fastball, four seam. He's spinning his curveball almost 3,000 RPMs. All right, that is nutty sort of data. He got 4 swings and misses. Called strike whip percentage was 36%, which is that's a pretty solid number. And given the sample of 25 pitches, I'll take that. That's 9. Nine out of his 25 pitches were called strikes or whiffs. That's a pretty good number to be at. It just jumped out at me that, you're obviously not able to get a look because the game is not televised, but you see stuff come in. You see 98, 99. Excuse me. And they did talk about, to be fair, that he was pretty amped up to get in there. So maybe it was a product of some extra adrenaline to get up there and hit 8s and hit a 9. But even if he's 96, if he's able to get 95, 96, this guy could pitch in the big leagues this season. And it was not something I had on my radar at all. And that's why I didn't think much of it when he came in the game. I was like, oh, sweet, Luinder Avila, 98. Okay. Here's what I do know out of that, though. That could be a hell of a reliever if they need it, right? Like, say they, Chris Stratton, hey, it's just not working anymore and they need a guy. Hey, let's go get the dude, the 23-year-old that throws 98 and bring him in, right? He's going to go to AAA, and he and Noah Cameron, it's going to be who's going to get to the big leagues first. And I think it's going to be Noah Cameron because he's a little older. I think the profile's a little safer. But Luinder Avila is a name to watch. And if he comes in and has success, it's massive for the Royals. Not just getting a young guy like this, 23, 24 years old, to come in and have an impact like he did. But the Royals haven't had a homegrown Latin pitcher that's really had a massive impact since the late Yordano Ventura. Like, had a significant impact at the big league level. Carlos Hernandez has made it. They've had guys make it, but hasn't had a guy that's like, whoa, like jumps off the page and, could be a special talent. I think Luinder Avila has that in him. I think the org loves him. Everything I've heard, that's the way it is. They believe in this guy. I want to see him get a couple more outings, but name to watch for sure for the rest of spring and going into 2025 in Omaha. If you're able to get up there and watch, go there on a Luinder Avila day and see what he's got. Moving on now, let's go to Open Day roster 2.0. Now, the starting rotation has not changed. It is Reagans, Lugo, Walker, Lorenzen, Chris Bubich. That's stayed the same. Moving to the bullpen, I had John Schreiber, Daniel Lynch, Chris Stratton, Hunter Harvey, Sam Long, Angel Serpa, Carlos Estevez, and Luke Sursik. I swapped out Kyle Wright for Chris Stratton. I didn't have Stratton in there originally because I wasn't sure what they were going to do with him, and I didn't know how healthy he was because I know he had surgery. I think he was pretty significantly banged up at the end of the year. I didn't know how healthy he was. But they still owe him about $6.5 million. So he's probably going to be in the, if you remember from the beginning of last year, the Jordan Lyles role, where this game is out of hand one way or the other, and we're going to save the bullpen. That's probably going to be what Chris Stratton does, unless they're in a pinch. But you look at this bullpen, and battling for spots is still Carlos Hernandez, Alec Marsh, James McArthur, Kyle Wright. And I'll throw Luinder Avila and Noah Cameron in there, even though they're way more on the fringes than they are, to pitching in AAA than they are getting to Kansas City. But those are names to watch now, for sure. When you look at this bullpen and all the question marks that were with it last year, like, yeah, James McArthur had a solid end of 23, but is he really going to be the closer? Angel Serpa, we just don't know. They plopped him in the bullpen, and we're not sure. Sam Long, maybe. Like, there was just so many question marks, and the guys that they had that were veterans that they had in there to solidify it were given high leverage roles, throwing in the low 90s without a lot of swing and miss. And it was a disaster for portions of the year where you needed Cole Reagans and all those dudes to go 7+ and save the bullpen, but it doesn't always work out that way, and they lost a lot of games that way. Now, Schreiber's in a different role. You don't need him to pitch high leverage every night. You don't need Chris Stratton to do it. You have 5 guys 5 or 6 that you feel really good giving the ball to 7th, 8th, 9th inning. Sam Long, Angel Serpa, Hunter Harvey, Carlos Estevez, Luke Sursik. It's a much better spot to be for the Royals. And you feel a lot more confident in going into games. Like, this is a really good bullpen. I don't think enough people have talked about it. I listened to one podcast. They specifically said it might be one of the more improved units in all of baseball. So it's starting to get some national recognition of it. Well, especially getting Estevez. Like, ooh, okay, that's going to win some games. Especially with the state of the lineup and still having some question marks. You win a lot of games pitching that way. And you're going to win games in October pitching that way. It looks a little different. My starting 9. Obviously, there are some guys that are obviously locked in. Salvador Perez, a catcher, Vinny Pasquantino at first base. I have Michael Massey at second, Michael Garcia at third, Bobby at short. I have Jonathan India in left, Kyle Isbell in center, Hunter Renfroe in right, and MJ Melendez DHing. Shifted some things around because I think Jonathan India is going to get first crack in left field between him and Massey. Obviously, as fate would have it, the first ball that Jonathan India sees in left field the other day, he lost it in the sun. It fell, whatever. Like, in spring training, I'd rather it happen now than in April when the real games start. Michael Massey sounded like he had a pretty good day out there. I'm just so skeptical of Michael Massey playing a lot of left field. Back injuries don't necessarily get better, and it kind of being something they just have to mitigate and work through and work on and hope that it's not going to linger too much. I'm going to run with Massey's going to play a lot of second. India's going to play left mostly. Some third to give Michael a break if he needs it. Occasionally get out there and play second, and Massey can play left in a pinch. I'm not saying that Massey's totally going to go back to second, but I think the split will be way more in favor of Jonathan India playing left field than Michael Massey doing it. On the bench, I have Freddie Fermin, Kevin Biggio, Joey Weimer, and Nick Lofton. I moved Aaron Blanco out because of the Achilles injury. Hopefully it's nothing, and this is of no concern here in a couple of weeks. But Nick Lofton has played well in the early part of spring training, so I think he deserves the nod for now. Other guys battling for spots, Tyler Gentry, who hit a home run and has looked pretty solid. Nelson Velasquez hasn't hit the ball a ton, but he has walked a fair amount, so that's a good sign. I still have Drew Waters in there because he's at AAA depth. Darren Blanco, Luke Maley, who they brought in as a non-roster invite. I completely missed that when it happened, but it's kind of like Austin Nola, where it is just depth, catching depth in AAA. And then I would throw Nick Prado in there, but again, I kind of view him the same way as Drew Waters, where I think it's just organizational depth. I don't think it's much more than that, but the guy does have big league time. So we'll see what happens. So that's my roster 2.0, and I'll throw that on Twitter for people to look at and, get a look and, leave their thoughts if they feel like they have any on, where the roster is at this point. And we'll do this again either next week or the week after. We will have a guest on next week's show. So you don't just have to listen to me ramble for 35 or 40 minutes, but I do appreciate everyone listening to this show. As I mentioned mid-show, like, rate, review, subscribe, all those good things on audio and video platforms. We'll be back next week, and I'm looking forward to doing more regular episodes during the regular season, but for now, we're still going to be once a week as spring training rolls on, but we will talk next week. Hope everyone has a good one. Take care.